Okay then folks, we are at the beautiful Moorlands Farm for issue today. I've not been here for ages and I must say what a fantastic job Grant Albert and his wife and his staff are doing at this place. It's like, oh, it's just amazing. If it was closer to me, I would be coming here all the time. And we're here to do a little bit of a method that I don't really like, folks, and that's shallow fishing. I bang on about blooming shallow fishing all the time, don't I? But honestly, I suppose this time of year, when it starts going a little bit colder at night time, fish are thinking about having a bit of a feed up. It's just one of the best ways of fishing ever, folks, but even more so for like now. Now, I'm not going to be going for any particular species as such. I want to be, well, I'm going to be showing you how I target different species. So in this particular lake here, Bank Pool we're on today, there's F1s, there's loads of great big skimmers and bream, obviously lots of carp, roach, things like that. So I'm going to be going sort of non-selective, if you like, for most of the while, but I have got sort of like a carp shallow rig come hybridy flick rig just in case. So I'm going to be talking you through sort of like the rigs and that first. What you've got to bear in mind, as always on these folks, is that I'm fast forwarding everything. Obviously the top kits that I've got set up, I would have multiples of them if I was in a competition, but I'm just sort of like giving you an insight into what I'd be doing when I'm getting fishing, but also what I'd be using as well. So without further ado, let's go through my first one. Now, the first rig that I'm going to talk through is a rig that I'd always start off on. Match conditions, even if I saw the fish swirling or swirling, I'd always start off on this rig. It's a really good indicator where the fish are feeding confidently in your peg, so that when you start missing bites, you can go on a different rig and get straight down to them. I'm going to be fishing at sort of 13 metres as well, folks, which I'll touch on, which is a decent distance from, you know, sort of like your short swim that you'd always have on these kind of venues, you know, your top kit and two, and then your margins as well. Always go sort of like, I go minimum of 13. But if people are fishing 13 around me, I'd probably go to 14, you know, just that little bit further out. And it's where I like to do my shallow fishing, on these kind of waters, you know, open waters. So, first rig first. Now, what you'll notice straight away is obviously I'm using, rather than your traditional, you know, that I bang on about all the time for like snake lakes, if you like, little short kits and sort of short frees. I don't really like using them on, you know, bigger open waters, especially when carp can get involved as well. Because they're a bit angry carps when it's open water. It's all right on snake lakes where, you know, you've not got as much water for the fish to swim around as such. You generally wallop into them, shit back in a wanna. So that's why, first things first, I'm using top two. Now, on me rigs that I'm going to be using for, well, we're going to catch carp on them as well, I'm sure, folks, but I want to target more sort of the F1s, the skimmers and the bream. My elastic choice is 13's Dura Hybrid. Fantastic elastic, certainly through a top two, you know, loads of stretch, not going to be bumping, I've said it now, folks, I know, not going to be bumping fish. I'm going to bump blooming fish and lose them now, aren't I? But joking apart, is enough cushion in there. And I suppose the beauty of when you are fishing shallow, you're hooking into these fish, they naturally want to sort of like swim down into the deeper water or swim off away from you. So there's going to be loads of cushioning from the elastic. So we'll go through the connection part first. As always, I've just got my little bobby bead on there, so I've taken the Dacron out of one of our Dacron connectors and just use it as a bead. We've got a little overhand knot in the elastic. Put your looper line on and then slide that back over. It's such an effective direct way of fishing, folks, especially when you're shallow fishing. Doesn't tangle, and I've been using it for years and years. Never ever worry about that line cutting through the elastic. It just doesn't happen. In fact, I think it's better doing it that way than on a Dacron, because you don't necessarily check Dacrons. You get your rig out, open the loop up, put it on your Dacron, you don't check your elastic. With this, it forces you to check your elastic, unless you leave your rigs on the top kits that I do and just get them out of the bag. But anyway, change your length, folks, that's what you're doing. So main line on everything is 0.20 AccuPower. Even though we're coming into sort of like, well, it's really start of early autumn, you know, sort of like middle of September now, I'm still going to use a really robust main line. I can be changing my hook lengths up, you know what I mean, but mainline lines, certainly mainline wise for shallow fishing, it does go through a lot, you know, when you're constantly in and out catching these fish, line over your landing nets, this, that and the other, it will go through a bit. So 0.20 is a must in my opinion. Now, first thing you'll notice is, so we've got a a 6-inch rule here. Now, I'm not going to get into overshotting rigs today, folks. You know, I've been through that before, separate videos. You've seen how I like overshot and stuff. When you're coming onto more sort of these kind of waters, squirrel! Just seen a squirrel, sorry folks, you've got to shout out squirrel. When you come into sort of like more open waters and it's, you know, bigger expanse, potentially bigger fish, I like a rig that does all kind of things. Having said that, if it was mainly F1s or fast biting fish, what you need to do is have sort of multiples of these rigs up and set them all to, as I said, the rule in here is 6 inches between your pole tip and your float. You'd have multiples of top kit set up with this distance the same from your float to your top of your connector. And then every time you'd want to change depth, you know, if you're not getting bites, obviously a little bit deeper, getting bites, missing them, foul looking fish, you come shallower, you don't want to be moving your float. What you want to be doing is getting a different top kit out with the same depth, but obviously set shallower. As I said, for today, for example, or when we start getting into that bit colder weather, I'm going to say generally the bites aren't as hard to hit. Again, I'm going to miss everything today, aren't I, folks? But I've got other rigs to cope for that. So this first one, my checker rig, you'll notice a number 8 back shot just above the float. In this instance, we've got a 4B8 F1 shallow float, and it takes 3 number 11s. Got one right under the float there. Just move that rubber down a little bit. Don't like that carbon exposed. One under the float there, one halfway, one on the hook length loop, and then we've got a 4-inch hook length, 0.13 GPMB, straight out of the packet, folks. You know how we work, and that doesn't change for me all year through. I'd always use them. I've got so much confidence in using them. 16s hooks, pretty much. I'll always use 16s hook. I don't need to drop to an 18s at all. But it's this bit here that makes a difference. I'll always set it around sort of 15, 16 inches on this rig to start with. And what you'll see me do when we eventually get fishing and I stop waffling, I'll be walloping the rig over, holding a tight line, and then seeing where I'm getting the bites through the water. And you'll only do that by using these kind of floats, you know, these little babby floats, carbon stem, folks, carbon or glass stem. Glass more for the heights of summer, carbon stems coming into when it goes that little bit colder. You just get a really good reading. Basically, once the float's settled and you're getting bites, you know you're at the right depth. If you're not getting bites, we just push that a little bit deeper. But as I say, if it's mainly F1s and skimmers, then really pay attention to making sure you've got that fixed at 6 inches and then changing your rig every time you want to move depth. So that's that rig. That's what we'll be starting off on, and I'd imagine that's what we're going to catch most of our fish on. It stood me really well over the years, that rig, folks. It really has. But my next rig, for example, this is what I mean now about having that rig set. So that float there is 6 inches from my pole tip to my float. Now, we set this at sort of 14 inches deep. If I feel as though I weren't getting bites, obviously match conditions again, folks, and I feel the fish has gone a little bit deeper, I get another one with this distance exactly the same, another rig out, and then just go to like 18 inches or something. That's what I mean. But for today's purposes, as I say, I'm just like fast forwarding everything for you. I want to show you how the rigs work. You know, I don't need to, and obviously I'm on my own, so hopefully we're going to catch some fish. Elastic, line, hook length is exactly the same. Now the main difference with this one, with this rig, once I've found out what depth the fish are through my checker rig, through the water, that's when I'll pick this one up. So an inline dibber, 4B10s, inline dibber, wire stem, hoink, settle straight away, and you'll see there we've just got a little babby bulk of 4 number 10 stots and not shots. That's what I didn't go through on that rig. How dare I not mention, very important when you're shallow fishing is to use stots and not shots, because every time you change depth, you want to make sure you're moving the shots as well, or stots, just so you're getting that nice even fall of your bait through the water. So we've got a little bulk of 4 number 10 stots right on our hook length, and again, exactly the same hook length, folks, 4 inches straight out of the packet, 0.13, GPMB, amazing hooks. So that one's set. Once we start missing bites, foul looking fish, come on to this one. Little babby lifts and drops. We'll go through it, folks, don't you worry. And then lastly, I'm not a massive fan of jigger rigs, but oh my days, do they have the place, especially on venues like this where you're not allowed to overshot. And obviously if it's a lot of F1s and, you know, fast biting silvery fish in the venue, that's when the jigger can work really well, because you're direct to your bait all the time, so the fish are hooking themselves. So again, exactly the same elastic, same main line, just got a little babby stop on there, which is 6 inches away from our pole tip. And then what I'll be doing, again, probably match conditions, I might have a couple of these set up, just to, you know, one goes a little bit deeper, but most of the fish still for this time of year they ain't going to be any deeper than 2 foot. So this is set at 2 foot, the absolute most. Similar to that inline dibber, I suppose. The only difference being we've just got a little bit heavier. This is the 4 to 6 mil one, and it takes 4 number 8 stots. Again, straight on the hook length, and we've got that same 0.13 to a 16s GPMB. You know, no different whatsoever. And then lastly, so that's covering all me sort of like fishing, what I do to start with. You know, if there was carp in the peg, obviously there's a lot of carp in this lake, I'd still quite happily start off on that, but I'd always have a carp rig set up as well, because mostly fish when you're starting off, I suppose, folks, through the session, it's going to be like F1s and skimmers, bream, roach, rudd, hybrids, things like that. It's not necessarily going to be carp that you're catching straight away, so that's why I want to give myself the best option, certainly this time of year, and obviously with the bait that we're using. But if it was mainly carp, and obviously, I mean, conditions are bang on today for it. We're getting the sun come out from like being fairly cold at night, folks. It was like 6 degrees this morning when I set off, but it's due to get up to like 19, 20 degrees today. Then what'll happen very quickly, them carp will start popping up. Now, when they start popping up, obviously, mugging, oh my days, mugging is still a tactic that, you know, does work really well, you know, well into sort of like when we get the first frost, because what you've got to think about, got a bit scientific here, folks, aren't there? What you've got to think about is obviously that colder water, that's a lot denser than the upper water layers. That's going to sink down to the bottom. Certainly if you're getting rain, which is going to be colder, that sinks down to the bottom. And then in turn, what that does is pushes the fish up in the water, and that's why you'll still see him sort of like swimming just under the surface, even on the coldest of cold days. So I've got a rig, which is like a little bit of a babby hybrid rig, to be fair. Not a hybrid in fish, I mean hybrid in, I can use it sort of like how I'm using the first rig that I'm going to show you, but then also I'll use it as a little babby flip rig. So for all my carp fishing, the difference between fishing for F1s shallow, or everything else, F1s and everything, and then carp shallow, is this bit here, folks. So the distance between your pole tip and your float, it always wants to be much longer for carp. Again, on open water, I'm not talking about, you know, pokey snake lakes or island fishing when you're going into islands. Open water carp fishing, you must have a longer line pole tip to float. So that's a good, what, 2.5 foot, certainly over 2 foot anyway. Elastic wise, I love our 15s Dura. 15s and 17s Dura for this game for carp is, it's just awesome. You know, stops them in the tracks, but when you're getting down to your top kit, just keep pulling away you go. So we've got our 15s Dura on that. It's 0.20 mainline again, and then coming down to the float, a good sort of 2 and a bit foot away. This is what I use for all my carp shallow fishing, and it's a carp shallow float. So a 410s carp shallow float. I'd change that to a 412s or even a 414 sometimes if it was like really hot, sticky, but you know, I don't think we're going to be having that anytime soon until probably next year now, folks. So 410s for me does the job perfectly. Now what it allows me to do is I've got 3 number 10s stots down the line on this. So what I can do, if I see fish sort of like under the surface, mugging, what I can do with these stots is put them all the way under my float. Yeah, so I can just move that. I'll just do that middle one, for example. I can move them all under my float, and then with like a 6 or an 8 mil banded pellet on there, or bunch of maggots, whatever, that's just falling at the same speed as what they'd expect that bait to be falling. It's a superb way of fishing, and you know, I'm fully expecting to still catch sort of like F1s, skimmers, bream, but also carp on this, because we've got a much stronger hook length on. This one we have got, let me open it up here for you. We have got a 16s, what is it, 16s to 0.17 KKM. You know, nice strong hook, not going to go anywhere with that. Again, straight out of the packet, they're awesome, folks. And then what I do on that band there is put a bigger pellet, a bigger standout bait, like sometimes a Robin Red works really well. You know, 6 mil big coppins or 8 mil coppins, something like that. Or as I say, a bunch of maggot, anything that stands out and grabs a fish's attention. So it's a brilliant way of fishing. As I said, the difference, the main one is that bit there, pole tip to float. F1's a lot shorter because the bites are harder to hit. Carp a lot longer because they tend to be a bit spookier and will back off your pole. Hopefully we'll be able to show it today. Even if we don't catch on it, I'm going to show you like the techniques and the methods. So them are the rigs talked through. Nice and simple, nothing complicated with them. The next thing we need to talk through is bait. Now I've not got a big bait selection today, simply because I'm keeping it nice and simple. There's not a fish swimming that, apart from ids, that doesn't eat pellets, so that's what we're going down. So come and join me on my bait tray and we'll go through baits. Right then folks, nice and quick, on to bait, just before the heavens open. Hopefully we'll get it done in time. And what you've got to consider about when you're fishing shallow is baits that aren't overly selective. So obviously, yeah, maggots and casters, great baits, going to catch everything swimming, but it's more sort of carpy, F1s and the bigger skimmers that I won't really target. Now bearing in mind, obviously these fish eat pellets day in, day out, we are going to get roach and rudd, which is like amazing because there's some decent ones in here. So what I've gone for is, obviously it's fishery on pellets today folks, I've just gone for a bag of 4 mils and then some different changes in hook baits. What I have done though, however, to make my loose feed stand out is give it some of my favourite pineapple and coconut. Pineapple and coconut for me, these absolute liquid flavours, or salted caramel, I absolutely adore. Now literally all I'm doing is just getting them, 2 pint tub there, just giving it a little bit of a dousing of the liquid and just working it through. Smells amazing. However, wasps love the stuff too, so you've got to be careful, but once it's soaked on the pellets, it's just phenomenal. And also, sometimes obviously certainly with 4 mil pellets, bait straight out of the bag will tend to float, and obviously what that's doing, that liquid, is just cutting through the surface tension and obviously making the pellets sink. The other thing I've got is more so for obviously carp fishing. When we go on that other rig, I've got a selection of different hook baits. Now these are coppins. Now coppins, great in that they don't take on a lot of water, they'll stay intact for a lot longer, and they're just a little bit of a heavier pellet as well, if you like. So we've got some 8 mils, we've got some 6 mils, and we've also got some robin red ones as well, just for a bit of a change of colour. And also we've got some 4 mil robin reds as well, just to sort of like mix it up a bit. But as I say, I'm going down like the more pellety route because that's all these fish see, rather than sort of like your maggots and your casters. But the rigs stay exactly the same, and obviously all we're doing is just sort of like trying to be a little bit more selective, I suppose, but we're still going to get the odd babby fish as well. So I think without further ado, these heavens are about to open, literally right in front of our very eyes, folks. I can see the rain coming. We're going to sort of like get all this camera gear away, and then the next thing you'll see me doing is hopefully getting snarled up in lots of wonderful fish. Oh, actually, before we do, make sure you get the right catapults as well. Catapult choice is so important when it comes to getting your bait nice and accurate. So I've been using these for quite a while now. This is the 17-inch Dura catapult, and we've got the 19-inch one, just in case we need to go a little bit further or that wind gets up a bit. Catapult choice is so important. So, right, come on, let's get that camera geared away, and hopefully the next time you show me, I was snarled up in loads of fish. Yeah! Right then, folks, so bit of a change in weather from when we started off, when it was glorious sunshine and I saw like carp to mug. It's gone a bit pongy now, but I'm sure the fishing will still be fantastic. So remember, obviously I'm fast forwarding everything. There's not a chance I'd ever start off straight away shallow. I'd always start off short pole usually, and then I'd be priming the swim up to where we're going to go in a sec. Usually when I see like signs of fish swirling and, you know, bubbles coming up, this, that and the other, but we're going to go straight into it today. Even if I'm not going to catch on one particular style of shallow fishing, I want to go through it with you so you can see like the different aspects and how each different rig works. So remember, the first one we're going to be doing is our through the water one, which is, I did have them in order. That blooming Jamie's mixed them all up. How dare you, Jamie? Which is this one. So that's the one that we're going to go on. We're going to ban just a normal 4 mil pellet straight out of the bag one. What I have done as well though, folks, is covered my bait up because we do not want them pellets getting wet. If your pellets get wet, it's different with like casters and emp and sweet corn, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if they get wet with the rain, but if your bait's getting wet, certainly pellets, they'll all stick together and just be horrible basically. So that's set at what, 15 inches, something like that. So we're going to go into that to start with and see, just to see what's what. I've been feeding it for about 10 minutes and there's already signs of fish, not swirling, but there's signs of fish bubbling. So just before we go out, first thing I want to do is get some bait in. Now, I'm not going to look behind me, my rollers are set right. Because it's a short bit of line pull tip to float, I want to make sure that rig's on the water all the time. See, there's a swell. Now, what I would say, if the sun was out, check where the shadow of your pole was. But because there's no sun out, as you can see, I'm not too overly bothered. Now, what I want to do with this rig, I don't want to leave it in for too long. Even the wind's getting up now, folks. It's great, isn't it? Welcome to English weather. Yeah, I don't want to leave it in too long. 10, 12 seconds at the most with this rig. I want to feed my bait, slap my rig over into it, and just keep on like that, just to see if there's any signs of fish at that depth that I'd originally gone at. If not, it's not going to take me long to change depth. Usually around sort of 4 inches at a time. I'll just bring it up and go 4 inches deeper, give that a few slaps. It's all about reading what's going on in your peg. Conditions, I must say, are not ideal at the minute. But you can see, like when I'm feeding that bait, it's important that my main grouper feed is, oh, that was a little dink then, is this side of my float. I don't want to be putting bait in past my float too often. The odd one don't bother me, but if I'm constantly feeding past my float, I'm just going to push the fish too far out. 90 seconds as well, folks, you know. Oh, that was a little dink then. I was not concentrating then, Andrew, were you? But it just shows you how shallow that. Oh, and another one, little dinky ding dang diddly ding dangs. So there could be F1s, but there could be babby fish, ruds and skimmers and that. But that's 2 bites that I've had there that have been shallower than what I'm fishing. So I'm looking to see where I'm getting the bites through the water by holding that tight line to my float. It's telling me where the fish are through the water. Ideally, I want to be getting bites like now as that rig's settled, but not loads through the water at the minute. I'd say they might possibly just be that little bit deeper. So my next port of call will be to come back and just go a little bit deeper and leave it another couple of goes over. That's all. 1, 2. Get another one after this one, and I'm going to come back and go deeper. I said 90 seconds usually, 2 minutes at the absolute most is all I'm going to leave it before I change something. Now, if I was getting more bites, oh, another little dink then, more signs of fish, then obviously it means the fish are a little bit shallower. But I've had 4 dinks, 1 at sort of depth, and then 3 sort of probably half depth, but not loads to go at. So come on, Andrew, you need to come back and change depth. So this is what I'm going to do. Have that last feed in, and yeah, you've got to be quick, you've got to be, you know, on it, so to speak. Nothing at that depth. I had a few little signs, but again, no real sort of like proper indications. I want to get that float, put it up sort of, what's that, 4 inches if you like, 3 or 4 inches. Obviously bearing in mind 6-inch limit pull tip to float. Now them stots that I've got, they're remaining nice and even down my line, which is what I want. I don't want a little bulk or anything like that. I want to make sure my bait's coming through nice and natural through the water. I said this might not be the best rig, you know what I mean? It might be completely the wrong one. The jigger might be the best one. You know, if we find that they're at a certain depth, it's just a case of getting down to them quick. Same with that inline dibber. Although at this depth, then my inline dibber's only set at sort of 14 inches, so that might not be deep enough. But I'm still going to show you, lovely lot, how we work it. So again, a couple of slaps over, hold that tight line to the float, and we'll see what happens. Usually when you change something with shallow fishing, you normally get like an instant response bite straight away. I can afford to leave this a little bit longer just because we're fishing that little bit deeper, get some bait in, and we'll up that rig over again. Yeah, hold a tight line. See the angle on that float I've got? It might be that we need to put a bigger bait on, we don't know yet. It's still like proper early days, we literally just started. Might be we need to put a bigger bait on, so a bit more commotion, a bit of a standout bait, because the colour of the water, it's so heavily coloured. It's just a case of just finding out where they are. Different colour bait as well, you know, maybe a robin red. But what you must do with shallow fishing, it's so important, is keep that bait going in. A few You see the odd bubble coming up, so we know there's fish there. I'd imagine to start off with there's going to be that little bit deeper. But obviously when you're fishing on other swims, say like competitions, or you're coming for a pleasure session, what have you, you wouldn't go straight on this style of fishing. You'd be priming it for a bit first, waiting for them swirls and, you know, bow waves and what have you, signs of fish. That's what you'd be looking at. You see, all the time I'm bearing, making sure I'm not feeding past where I'm fishing. I've got a mark on the far bank that I'm lining up with, but my bait's going to be going over a bit of an area anyway, so I'm not overly concerned. It's not like I've got a little pot on and I want to fish really tight, you know, loose feed, and your bait's going to be going over a bigger area anyway. Nothing. I thought that'd have gone pretty quick then. We're changing that depth. So I'm just going to change presentation a little bit. I'm just going to start lifting and dropping, see if that gets any fish's attention. If this starts working, then obviously that jigger will come into play a little bit better. But this is ridiculous weather at the minute, folks. I'm sure this will be why we're not getting many indications at the minute. Definitely. But also we're just starting off as well. It's good to see, to show, you know, what happens when you're first starting off and the decisions that you make, kind of thing. Might be it's a case of just slapping a pellet for, you know, for carp, that kind of thing. We don't know until we get going. Oh, that was a little dink then. So that was from that lifting and dropping technique, which does work really well, especially on F1 dominated venues. So if I miss another bite on this one, we're doing them little lifts and drops, and what I'll do, I'll come back and, yeah, that was another missed bite. So what I'm going to do now is come back and try the jigger, because I know they're at that depth. I'm going to try the jigger. As I say, my inline dibber is set a little bit too shallow, but I will show you, but not yet, because I want to catch fish. I'm going to go in with a jigger which is set around sort of 2 foot. Or the stop, I've got it set at 2 foot. Put another pellet on. So to start with, I'm just using the same pellets that I'm feeding, just the 4mm. That's it. Again, just before we go out, put some bait in. Get them fish waiting, hopefully. And ship out. What I would say as well, when you're constantly rotating your pole over, you know, the slapping technique, make sure you check your sections every 15-20 minutes, because they will work a bit loose. Usually it's these back ones, you see that one? Usually it's the back ones that work loose, but you must check them, because we don't want a pole going bye-bye in the water. So this one, a few slaps over, and obviously run a jigger. So it's a case of, to start with, lower it down, and then feed your bait over the top. But we know where the fish were on that, from that last rig that we had, so down towards the bottom. So what we'll do is just keep, oh, we see the swirl there then, that's a big carp. Just keep on with that, lifting and dropping. Can be sort of, well, on its day, there you go, see what I mean? That's the difference. So we found out where the fish were. Obviously they weren't shallow to start with, so we've gone 4 inches deeper. Didn't really have signs straight away, but when I started them little techniques, which I can't, well, you've seen it in one there, folks, you know, it's real time this. Them little sort of like flicks and drops, because your hook bait's falling so natural, that's why you're getting them bites. It's phenomenal, it is. I'd imagine if they're at that depth now, that it won't take them long. If it's an F, yeah, it'll be an F1. They're soon going to become shallow. It's just amazing. Don't really catch many carp on this technique, but where it's sort of F1s or anything else dominated, it is absolutely superb. Here we go. Especially when, I said I wasn't going to mention overshotting today, but I want to mention it, especially when overshotting is not allowed. Yeah, beautiful for ones like that. That's what you can expect. Now what I would say is pay attention to where you're hooking them. Now this one is in the bottom part of the lip. Now usually that means that the fish have come up past your bait and then gone back down and obviously intercepted your bait on the way back down, so it means that potentially the fish are a little bit shallower. What is noticeable straight away is how warm them fish are. So I don't think it's going to take long for them fish to come up in the water today. Just see if we can catch one more on this one, and then I'll show you that inline dibber again, because there's some, not many, but there's some venues that will ban, you know, sort of the jigger. So make sure shots are on the same position, no slime in your line, and change that to pellet every fish.
Hi guys, sorry to interrupt this video. It's just a reminder to make sure you like the video, subscribe to Preston Innovations YouTube channel, and make sure you hit the notification bell to make sure you never miss another upload.
Again, just before we go out, feed some bait, and away we go. Not going to check my sections this time because I haven't been slapping. So literally just lay that rig in, get straight down to depth where that last one was. As I say, other times, you know, it pays to lower your rig down, you know, with your bait. And we'll see what's what. It's just a case of feeding around your rig, but them little flicks. Obviously, once you've found out what depth they are, it's deadly. Because your bait's falling, you know, that nice and natural, that's when the fish take it. Which is where, obviously, if this rig wasn't allowed, you wouldn't allow a jigger, then that's when your inline dibbers really come into play as well. So you can see them fizzing now, actually, on there. Obviously, it's not necessarily always fish on the bottom when you see them fizzing like that. It can be fish charging through your peg, you know, blowing air, cheeky. But yeah, usually certainly with like pellets, it'll be fish, you know, on the bottom. So maybe, you know, starting off on the bottom, that's usually one, but I never really like to do that when I'm fishing shallow. I'll always fish on the bottom short, but me swim out long is always going to be my shallow one. That's where you're going to do most of your damage. So I'm just going to change it up a little bit now. I'm going to bring that up there and just to lower it down, just to see if there's any fish sort of like bypassing me. I'm going too deep, to see if there's any fish coming up in the water. And obviously this is where that my first rig that I was on, that through the water rig, that's where that really comes into play, you know, comes into its own. Just searching them layers. Obviously F1's like noise as well, and if you're not allowed to tap, then, you know, slapping works really well. But most of the time that the noise of them pellets is enough. But we'll just give it a few oh, that was a big carp then. A few slaps over just to see, and just lower it down. So no taps there, so I'm just going to carry on with lifting and dropping at that depth, just to see what's happening. You know there's fish there. And basically you'd be doing the same on that inline dibber. You know, if we're getting sort of missed bites on that through the water rig, you just go into that inline dibber one, set at the depth where the fish were, and just keep lifting and dropping. Sometimes can work better because it's a little bit lighter, you know, it's going to be in the 410s, can work a little bit better than this method. But not a bad, oh, there we go. Yeah, see what I mean, that little lift and drop. As the fish go to like spit your bait out, oh, it's a skimmer, go on. And this is what I mean about this style of fishing, yeah? We're not being selective. 4mm pellets, going to catch you everything swimming. Apart from ids. Ids don't like pellets, folks. So that's where I would recommend maggots and casters, but pellets, fish eat pellets, they love them. Look at them, proper weight builders. You know what I mean, if you can get them going. Yeah boy, go on the slimy poppadoms. Look at them, proper weight builders. Sort of £1, £2, £1, something like that. Right, so I'd quite happily, if I was in a match, I'd be staying on that, folks. I would actually. I wouldn't be changing anything, but I ain't in a match, so I'll just quickly want to show you what I'll be doing with that inline dibber rig. I don't think we're catching it because it's set shallower than, and I don't want to put that float up more than 6 inches. We're at 6 inches there. Just let me double check. Oh, we could probably get away with a bit deeper actually. I'm just going to put that up a tiny bit more to 6 inches. There's 6 inches on me. Let me pull her, so we're literally there. I want to go as deep as possible. But what I'll be doing, remember me saying when we're talking through rigs, I'd have sort of 3 or 4 of these at different depths, but maintaining that, if you like. And at the minute, they're just that little bit deeper. But I just want to quickly show you, if we don't catch, even if we don't catch, I want to show you how I'd work this rig. Very similar to the jigger, but there's a bit more slapping involved as well. So again, just before we go out, we'll get some bait in. Again, make sure you're looking at your rig when you're shipping out. Don't look behind you. Keep that rig nice and low to the water so it doesn't tangle. Plenty of fish out there now, fizzing away. And then we'll give it a couple of wallops over. Wallop, and put that float right over your shots. So again, very similar to what I was doing on the jigger, but this time it's a little bit more direct really. But it just gets over the fact that, you know, some venues where you're not allowed to use a jigger and you've got to maintain that pole tip to float, it's still very, very positive. You'll miss the odd bite, but when they're having it proper, it's really effective. It does work really well. No good obviously if the fish are feeding through the water, they're not a particular depth because of obviously the shotting and everything. And it's the wrong kind of float if you're wanting to fish that way. That's when you come onto that F1 shallow kind of float, the carbon stem. It's all about them little lifts and drops, and the odd slap, put your float over where you've slapped in, just keep on with it. So I wasn't expecting to really catch on this rig, just simply because I don't think it's deep enough. I think them fish are a little bit deeper. So what I'm going to do in a sec is go back to me first rig, just set it at the same depth as what, oh, that was a little dink then. Set it at the same depth as what my jigger was. And hopefully, because that's that way of fishing, basically with a jigger, you're fishing where your shots are and how long your up length is. Yeah, so you're only fishing sort of 4-6 inches when you get down to that depth. Whereas with that first rig that I was on, fishing through the water, you're basically fishing from when that rig enters the water all the way down to whatever depth you're at, if that makes sense. I know what I mean, but I don't think I'm saying it right, but hopefully I am and you understand it. I'll talk you through it when I come back next. So again, you're seeing I'm being very particular that I don't want to feed past where I'm fishing. But as I said, I wasn't expecting to get bites on this one. I just wanted to show you how you'd work this rig. So what I do, obviously max conditions, I had another one of these, set it probably 4 or 5 inches deeper, just where the fish are at the minute. Oh, I whinged him on. Hey, I whinged him on, didn't I, folks? Hey, go on the jumpers. I whinged him on. Well, at least you've had one on it. Again, just shows that technique. So it's literally as soon as you lift and drop it, fish take the bait, because it's so natural, that bait's falling back so natural, and then by the time they've gone to spit it out, you've already lifted up again. So let's unhook him, and I'm going to go back to that first rig, just because it's a little bit more natural and how it's falling. Hopefully we'll get a bite on it a little bit quicker. So I'm going to set it to how deep that jigger is. Yeah, so it's at the same depth as what that jigger was. Got the bait on, stops spread nice and even. This is what I mean. Whereas obviously the jigger or that rig that I've just been on, your bulk of shots there, so you're straight down to the fish, yeah. And you're lifting that float up and dropping it, lifting it and dropping it. So you're only fishing this bottom sort of 4 inches. Whereas this float or this rig, when you slap it on the surface on that tight line, you're fishing from like, well, however deep it is. What's that? 18 inches. You're fishing in that depth of water, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's such an effective way of fishing, but you do miss some bites on it when they're having it proper. But it will get you bites when, you know, them other positive rigs won't. So I'm going to check my sections this time, because we did a few slaps. Did a few slaps on that other rig. So once you're out there, give it 2 or 3 wallops over, and then see what's what. So you see like the angle on that float. It's just, there we go, see what I mean? Even though it's a little babby fish, but it's all about getting bites. I'm not bothered. Obviously I'd be bothered if everyone was catching great big wobbly carp, but I'm not bothered at all. It just shows you, built the swim up a little bit. That's what you're rewarded with. Let's get him netted. Little hybrid, but again, weight builders, you know what I mean? Look at them, right in the top lip. 10 out of 10. Get him back down there, we'll have another go on that one. And then, I'm just going to show you that carp rig. There's no carp whatsoever cruising or anything at the minute, but it still doesn't mean there won't be carp there. There will be, and obviously with that other rig you can fish a little bit bigger pellet, make a little bit more noise, but normally it'd be sort of like later on into the session when that come into play. Or if it remained sunny, I'm sure the blooming carp would be coming up, but unfortunately we just had that downpour. It's probably pushed a lot of the fish down that little bit deeper to start with. So when we're going out, 2 or 3 slaps over, first thing you want to do, pick your catapult up, but hold that tight line, yeah? See how slow my float's falling through the water. It's sort of reached its depth now. Feed some bait, slap over once. So your hook bait is falling with your loose feed or there or thereabouts. Longest we're going to leave it, as I said, 10-12 seconds at the absolute most. Again, it's at the bottom of the fall now, so a few slaps over, a bit of commotion, but just make sure you keep that bait going in. For carp it's a little bit different. You tend to a lot more slapping or fishing past your bait. With anything else, you know, F1s, silvers, you're feeding a lot more regular. We do come into that, right? So you can see now the sun's just peeped its head out. The shadow of my pole, I'm slapping into the shadow of my pole, which is not which is not ideal. So what I want to be doing is slapping the opposite direction, if you like, because the fish will spook off the shadow of the pole. But Eddie, you've seen the difference with that rig, yeah? From like how we started off and the difference with this rig. It catches absolutely everything. Look, lovely roach like that, stunners they are. I just love this style of fishing, folks. It's just amazing. Catch absolutely everything. What is noticeable is how warm these blooming fish are, so they will come shallow pretty quick. So that's that one. Again, match conditions. I'll probably be on that one now, actually, or the jigger. Jigger's been best obviously so far, but I'll probably be on that one because I feel as though you catch more fish and get more bites on that rig. But what I'm going to show you now is the carp rig, yeah? So remember, the main difference between carp, shallow fishing, and F1 or everything else fishing is that pole tip to float. So a lot heavier this one, and we're going to put a 6mm pellet on. I'm just going to fish it obviously over where I've been feeding, slapping, but also show you how versatile the rig is. That's why I call it like a little bit of a hybrid rig, in that we can flick past our bait. If we saw fish, you know, cruising, then we can put them stots right under the float and go for them, but I can't see anything. So to start with, what we're going to do, that sun's gone in again, so, but in fact now I'm going to slap that way, just if that sun does come out, the shadow's not on that way. Yes, you can see a lot more commotion with this rig. It's carp one. Ooh, we had a bite straight away. I don't think it was carp. So it's another thing to, if you like, feel that you're getting more bites obviously on, with more commotion, then change your hook bait. Obviously we've had a 4mm on them other rigs. Look at the fish in there. It might be that they just want a bigger hook bait. But the difference with carp shallow fishing is what we're doing now. So we're not feeding as much, but we're slapping a little bit more often. So sometimes 2 slaps, sometimes 3 slaps. How I tend to work it is I'll feed, slap into it once, and then I'll have 2, 3 or 4 goes of no feed and just slapping. So I'm going to do it 3 times now, and I'm going to get ready to feed again. Yes, you can see how slow that float's coming in again. Yeah, everything's nice and even. So I'm going to feed, slap over once. So your hook bait, I mean, it's going to be going a little bit faster with the 6mm on than your 4mm, but it's going to be going there or thereabouts. Oh, little dink, there, a little fish then. 2 or 3 slaps. Because with carp, it's not all about the constant doink, doink, doink of feed and getting that column of bait going in, which you've got to do. I'd say there's a carp there now, which you've got to do for F1s and silvers. Carp fishing's all about this, the noise, slapping, you know, because obviously the size of them, they'll come into that bait and they just want them to pick yours out. See, there's a carp. Oh, he's just spooked off. He's just spooked off. That's usually what you get if you're slapping into the shadow of your pole, but we're not, because he's on the other side. You can see where the shadow of my pole is, to the right hand side. I'm slapping away from it. I reckon we'll get a bite on this. See, normally this is saved towards the end of your session. I mean, it's fizzing like mad, so obviously there's plenty of fish there. So yeah, so there's that technique, is obviously slapping it over, not feeding nowhere near as much. You see my feeding rate slowed down. But also with this rig, and what does work really well in a lot of carp venues, is once you get into the rhythm, is flicking past and feeding at your pole tip. Again, we're not leaving it long, sort of 8 to 10 seconds. Once that bait's on the bottom of that fall, bring it back and then flick it out again. Can work really well. But again, don't feed at your float, feed at your pole tip, flick your rig past it. Works for all styles of fishing, not just obviously for carp, but usually more so for carp, especially when it goes bright and what have you. So you see, we had a bite then, but I'm sure these are still, you know, the odd little babby fish just feeding away. But it's a really good insight into how you want to approach these, you know, venues. We've still got quite a few weeks left of shallow fishing, I'd say. You know, certainly up until we get the first frost or two, you'll be able to catch shallow. But obviously, if you're, you know, not thinking about doing this style of fishing, you wait until next year again, then keep it in your locker, folks. Honestly, you'll catch so many fish on it. It's amazing. Let's give it one more go with that, and we're going to go back to slapping. So you see, I'm not leaving it long. It's all about grabbing their attention, you know. Either they come to the noise of the slap, or they're watching that pellet fall past, and they just sort of snatch at it. Fabulous way of fishing. But as it is at the minute, I wouldn't say there's loads of carp around. So it's more sort of like how I'd started off, you know, on that rig through the water, the jigger rig, the inline dibber, that style of fishing for catching everything swimming. But then I always have this rig set up, ready to go, baited up. And then if you do see a carp, or there's a carp in your peg, just get straight on it. It's brilliant. Oh yeah, so there's still, again, this is a good indicator as well. If you're missing bites and you don't see bow waves, and you know it's not carp basically. You know it's still, so you know there's still small fish there, which is what's there at the minute. I won't say there's any carp there. Usually with carp, you miss a bite, obviously liners in my instance, folks, then you know that there's no carp there. So all these bites that we missed on this rig, no bow waves or anything like that, yeah, these are small fish. I'm going to have one more go on this, and I'll come back and put that lighter rig on. That rig that we first started off on. I'm sure we'd be into fish pretty quick again. Yeah, I'm going to come back, but I've just, again, fast forwarding everything, aren't we, folks? I just wanted to show you the techniques on all the rigs. So you see, carp fishing, being more patient, using your rig more, you know, the slapping, flicking past, bigger baits, bigger standout baits. And then obviously with this style of fishing that we started off on, I'm just going to bring that down a tiny bit. With this style of fishing, it's all about, you know, getting that feed, getting that column going in, regular amounts of feed. So good, love it. Just nice and busy, time flies by, you know what I mean? So just before we go out, put some bait in. Take your sections, because we've been slapping a bit. Use this back one, there we go. And then 2 or 3 slaps over, but I need to be feeding a lot more. So we should get bites fairly quick now. The fact that we're getting them on that much heavier rig, that carp rig, hopefully we'll get bites fairly quick on this one. Yeah, so you see that rig coming through the water, nice and natural, nice and slow. Look at them fizzing there. That's a ridiculous amount of fish there. So it's just a case of working out where they are, keeping that bait going in. What you can do when you've got a lot of fish there is obviously slow down your feed rate. Yeah, you don't just want to keep that same amount going in all the time. Slow the amount you're feeding in. You know, rather than sort of like maybe 20 pellets, just give them sort of 8 or 10, get them competing. Obviously we know there's a lot of bait going in there because of fizzing, so just going to slow down on that feed for the minute, be a bit more active. I thought that one would have gone straight away, that. Just shows you, doesn't it? Bites on that really heavy carp rig, and not on this one. Could be that, you know, we need a bigger pellet on, zoning in on that bit of bigger bait. So that'll be my next next protocol. Change the size of your hook bait. All these little things you just need working out on the day. A little dink. Well, it might be that they just dropped down to, oh, so that was a bigger fish there. There's a carp there now, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back. See, it's still swirling. I'm going to come back and put a bigger bait on. It's definitely noticeable on that carp rig that the bites were coming off a bigger plot, so I'm just going to put a 6mm on to make a little bit more commotion. Not a massive 6mm. You'll always find like there'll be different size baits, you know, in your bag of pellets, so pick out a little bit of a smaller one. Don't want a massive one, but still much. See, it's still swirling there. That's what I've been inclined to do, rather than feed, because I can still see that fish swirling, is just slap my rig for a bit, because it's, again, it's carp. I'm just going to slap my rig, just make a bit of commotion and not feed, and see what happens. We know there's a fish there, obviously we can see him. Yeah, see another one there. I don't know if they're F1s or carp. I'd imagine they'd be carp, but just with that bit bigger pellet, that 6mm pellet, it's making that bit more commotion, but no bait going in. Hopefully it's going to pick ours out. Come on. Again, obviously match conditions, don't go too long without feeding. You know, you've got to be keeping up with those around you, but pleasure fishing, see what I mean? Yeah, we knew that fish was there then, and we've had another 3 bow waves off it. So you can't just sort of like stick and keep wellying baiting and stick doing what you're doing. You've got to mix things up, folks. This is real time for you. I love it. I love this style of fishing, and also showing you. I think it's a big F1. But if I'd have just stood there, or well, sat there, on this rig with a smaller pellet, just kept wellying baiting, probably wouldn't have caught this, you know what I mean? Because again, pleasure fishing, you don't need to put as much blooming bait in pleasure fishing. I get it wrong all the time. Because obviously you're on your own. You're not competing with anyone, but match conditions, you must keep that bait going in. Oh, F1. Go on, F1s. Oh, we got him. Beautiful. And I reckon we will end on him. Look at that. Beauty. 2 pounds and 5 ounces in, folks. But it just goes to show you, keep working at it. I reckon I'm going to snare a load now. There's a load there, fishing and what have you. But it just goes to show you, it's pointless to just me, you know, carrying on. We've been through all the rigs. And it's interesting for you to see which one we've come back to. That rig that we've just been on, we caught that fish on, that is the rig that will catch a fish when the other rigs won't, basically. So when there's not loads of fish there, stick on that one, because you're fishing, as soon as it lands, you're fishing effectively through the water. When there's a lot of fish in your peg, which I've not got the luxury today, unfortunately, because we've done it from the start, but I'd imagine another, not even half an hour, probably 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, there'll be a lot of fish there. That's when I can get onto them other rigs, the jigger, the inline dibber, thump straight down to the feeding depth, and just like it be carnage, I would have thought. One thing I would mention as well though, is if it's carp that you're after, this rig, and obviously the carp rig, them are the ones, you don't really catch them on a jigger or sort of like the inline dibber. It's a little bit too positive for them, so just bear that in mind. But yeah, give it a go, folks. Don't be selective, but have a carp rig set up as well, and you'll just have the best day ever. Just throw your plummets away and just fish shallow. Hope you enjoyed it, folks. Let us know how you get on. Yeah!